This is the I'm Giving Notice podcast, episode 10. But my guest, Dale Irvin, thinks it's number 9. Shh, don't say anything.
This is the I'm Giving Notice podcast, where you get to take control of life's big three and have the career, relationships, and health that you've always dreamed of. Now, get ready to say, I'm Giving Notice, with your host, Mace Haroff.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the I'm Giving Notice podcast. This is Mace Haroff. I've got a really special guest today. His name is Dale Irvin, and he is the world's only professional summarizer. Now, I could try to tell you what that is. I know I'd screw it up. So let me ask Dale. Dale, you on the line?
Yes, I am. And the first thing I'd like to know is how special really can I be if this is already episode 9? That means there were 8 people ahead of me who were even more special. So...
Well, none of it is launched yet. It's going to be launched sequentially. So look at it this way. When episode 9 appears, you're going to be that much more special than the first 8.
If you say so, I'll buy into that.
What is a professional summarizer? What do you do?
Basically, I am a comedian. That's the first segment of what I do. I'm also a professional speaker. So what I do is I attend major conferences, conventions, meetings, and such. Most of the time, the client will bring me in to MC the meeting, but even when they don't, I observe everything. I look at all the speakers, I look at the venue, I look at what they're eating, and then periodically throughout the day, I give them a recap, a summary, if you will, of what has just happened in the form of a comedy monologue that I've just written.
So you watch people eat. I
have watched them eat. It's usually not a pretty sight, but rather than focus on the individuals, I'll focus on the food, which in many corporate venues is very well worthy of being made fun of.
That's very true. Another thing in corporate venues, usually the hotels, if you're on a high floor, there's terrible shower pressure. So do you watch people shower?
I have never watched someone shower that was aware that I was watching.
Well, you're really good at what you do. Now, the I'm Giving Notice podcast, we focus on life's big 3, career, relationships, and health. What's amazing to me is how you developed a thriving career as a professional summarizer. So when you were in school and the teacher always asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Was that your answer? No, it wasn't. I don't know what my thing was. My mother always wanted me. Well, she wanted me to be a minister for a while. Then she wanted me to be a lawyer, and she had all these big hopes for me. And my dad just really wanted me to move out, and so they never really. I never really knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. First of all, I never planned on growing up, and then all of a sudden, boom, you are. So you got to figure out what you want to do. But I never really had any plans. I was, however, kind of the subliminal class clown. I did what I do today back then. I would write funny notes about the teacher occasionally. I'd pass them off then. Hopefully I didn't get caught. That's the subliminal part.
Exactly. I never got caught, but I was depended upon to make people laugh. So I tell people that I now get paid for what I used to get detentions for.
and no punishment.
No punishment. I really never had a detention. It just makes the joke funnier.
Well, you are kind of like a minister. I know your mom wanted you to be a minister. You do preach to tens of thousands of people every year.
Well, I don't know if I preach to them. I try and persuade them to improve their lives through laughter, because it has so many benefits of, it can make you live longer, feel better, make more money, have better relationships, reduce your stress, and on and on and on. So I just try and encourage people to laugh more.
Isn't it true there's a lot of boring speakers in the world, and you were at the opposite end of the spectrum? I mean, I've been to one particular association that I belong to. They brought you in as a speaker the first time I ever attended, and then they didn't bring you in again for about 3 or 4 years. And then they brought you in again. It was kind of a surprise. You came out at the banquet, and the crowd went absolutely wild because you take what are otherwise boring meetings and you make them very entertaining. Now, I want to go back to what you said. You said that laughter makes you live longer. If you've ever been at a boring meeting, you feel like you're living longer and you wish you weren't.
If you're going to go to all the trouble and all of the expense of having a meeting, you may as well make sure that the people that attend the meeting, number one, show up, number two, stay awake, and number three, learn something. And that's the three areas that I try to specialize in. When they realize they're going to have fun at the meeting and they're going to laugh, they show up. They need to stay awake because otherwise they may miss the joke that I'm going to tell, and they retain the information that they've heard better when they hear it a second time in a comedic format.
No one's sleeping when you are on stage. I mean, nobody. So let's go back.
One guy did one time, but I put his hand in warm water, and that's the last time he did that.
I'm glad I wasn't sitting next to him. Or on a love seat. That would have been even worse. Let's go back. You're a professional summarizer. So how did this begin? What did you study in college?
I studied finance.
Oh, well, now I see the connection.
Oh, yeah, because that's what my brother studied, and he already had a job. And so I graduated with a degree in finance by the skin of my teeth, and got a job in the business selling life insurance, which I did for 6.5 months before I completely ran out of relatives.
You have to have a sense of humor to sell life insurance, don't you?
Well, you have to have one yourself, but people didn't really take to funny jokes about how soon they're going to die. So I had a whole shtick worked out, but I never really sold anything.
Well, you probably made them feel good about dying, or the prospect of dying.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
All right. So you worked in the insurance world. Again, no connection, which is cool because people think they have to have a connection with what they're doing now to move to the next segment of their career. If you could kind of describe the path from working in the finance world, the insurance world, to doing what you do now.
Well, it's very simple. I went from insurance to advertising because that seemed like a fun career, and I had a connection in Chicago that could get me a job. So I moved to Chicago, and I was in the advertising business for probably about 10 years. And while I was in that business, just as a lark, for something fun to do, I decided to take improv classes at Second City in Chicago. And I studied with them for 2 years and formed an improv group, and we played around in local, what would you call them, dive bars. And this was about the same time that comedy clubs were opening up all over. So I started doing stand-up comedy. All of this strictly as a hobby, as a fun thing to do. So when I got fired from the advertising business, this was the next logical step for me, was to try comedy and see what I could do with it.
If you talk to anyone who ventures out into stand-up comedy, people try it. They go to open mic nights, even people who get paid for it. I mean, I always hear it's a tough way to make a living. How did you eventually get to the point where you can make a living at it?
Well, yeah, it's a very tough way to make a living because when I started out, when I was doing local spots here in Chicago, I believe the top pay for a show was $5. Most of us made $2. And then when you go out on the road full time, at the time, and it's still very low, I don't know what it is anymore, but you would have 3 acts, an opening act, a middle, and a headliner. The opening act would make a couple $100 for the week. The headliner, maybe $1,000 back then. And it hasn't gotten a whole lot better ever since then. So I knew I wasn't going to get rich in comedy, and I discovered the corporate end of the spectrum, and it was a lot more appealing because first of all they don't put conventions in bad places. They'll always send you to California or Arizona or Puerto Rico, whereas a comedy club, I've played them in some one-horse towns where the horse had died long ago. They also put you up in very lovely rooms and such, as opposed to comedy clubs, which will put all the comics in a condo, which is occupied by rotating comics every week. And needless to say, it's pretty much like a 2-bedroom petri dish. And so it was all more appealing. Then I found out that they paid a whole lot more in the corporate market, and now my goal was to set myself aside from all of the other funny people that were already in the corporate market. And this is kind of when the summarizer idea came to light.
It's kind of a transition, isn't it? Because in the comedy market, you could do whatever you want. You could say whatever you want. Corporate market's very different.
Well, material-wise, yeah. I mean, in comedy clubs, it's open for anything. But in a corporate market, sure, you've got to realize that these are professionals that you're dealing with. Many of them may not even go to comedy clubs. They don't want to talk about their, personal body habits or drug use or sex, or say they want things that are just, funny in and of themselves. So it's a change of material. You've got to be, as they say, squeaky clean or close to it for corporate work. I'm not really squeaky clean, but I need a good oiling once in a while.
Well, one thing that you are able to do that only the best comedians can do, you can walk the line where the audience knows what you're implying, but you never cross the line. So you don't really offend anybody, at least in an outwardly way. In an inwardly way, you do it pretty well.
That was a great compliment I got from a meeting planner one time. He says, "Man, I can't believe it. You walked right up to the edge and never fell off."
Let's talk about relationships. I don't know if that's if you have any expertise in this area, but we'll keep it kind of general. Most women, when they're asked what they find attractive in a man, many will say a man who makes them laugh. So I'm thinking, Dale, you must be pretty popular with the ladies. How can guys... Go ahead, answer that first question.
Well, I don't know if popular is the right word, but just last week I celebrated my 40th wedding anniversary. So I must be doing something right to keep her around for this long.
Well, clearly your wife's doing a lot of laughing.
That's my only defense.
All right. Now, most guys aren't funny. They might think they're funny. A lot of people don't think they're funny. How can a guy make a woman laugh?
Well, first of all, you are right. When they did interview, and I read a recent survey where they interviewed something like, I believe, 10,000 women, and they asked them, what's the first thing you look for in a man? And their answer was a sense of humor. And then they asked 10,000 men, the same question, what's the first thing you look for in a woman? And their answer was way different.
We're approaching that line right now.
But, yeah, that's if you want to if you want to be attractive to a woman, yeah, make her laugh. And there's different ways of doing it. You can I guess have your own lines started up to talk about a joke. You can go walk up and make a joke about the place that you're standing or what you're drinking or what. But anyhow, just try and to make her laugh, and it'll carry a lot of weight.
A lot of weight. Very
well, you don't want to say that, that might be a funny line, but it's not going to help her. No, that's not going to work.
Well, I tell you, that is a good actionable piece of advice right there. Never use those words.
No, never, no.
Do you think anybody can be funny?
Unless they really set their mind not to be. It's an interesting thing about laughter is when you look at all of the species of creatures on the earth, the human being is the only one that can laugh. And so it's a gift that we need to employ more. But, yeah, I think anybody can be funny. Some people just choose not to be. And that's too sad. That's kind of sad because, the more people that we would have laughing in this country, the fewer people we would have shooting. So, to answer your question, yes, anybody can be funny.
Doctors often tell us that laughter is good for our health. Now, we usually stop laughing once we get their bill. But nevertheless, if laughter is so good for our health, how can we laugh more?
Just really, I tell people, just open your eyes. There are funny things all around us. I mean, it's an election year, for crying out loud. If you can't find something to laugh at there, I don't know. But yeah, just open your eyes. Funny things happen all the time. Here's an example. I was at the local grocery store a couple of days ago, and I'm walking down the aisle to get some milk. Now, I go down the aisle, and it's like orange juice is all lined up along the aisle, both on shelves, and then there's like a rack that juts out with all the orange juice sitting in there. Well, as I'm going down that aisle, I see a guy who has to be tipping the scales at, 350, 400 pounds. And apparently he must have got winded or something, because he pushed the orange juice aside and sat in the cooler. I just couldn't believe it. I said to the manager, I said, I've officially seen everything now, but you may want to take a look at this. But this guy's cooling his cheeks in your orange juice cooler. And I can't tell you when I'm coming back to get some more orange juice.
You just, I think, stopped me from drinking orange juice ever.
So you can find the funny stuff anywhere. My goal in life every day when I get up, I want to make at least one, if not everybody I meet, laugh. I want to make at least one person laugh. I don't care if it's the guy at the hardware store, the waitress at the diner, a person, a neighbor, whatever. I want to make somebody laugh every time I meet them, because to me that's that's practicing what I preach, and it's good for them.
Not only that, but it makes you memorable in a very powerful way, because people will always remember the way you make them feel, the famous Maya Angelou quote. And when someone has you laughing, you just feel good about that person.
You can't hate a person who is making you laugh. You really, you can hate them later on, but you can't dislike somebody who is making you laugh.
Dale, you do something every week called the Friday Funnies, and people should really check that out. I'm going to have a link to it on the show notes page. For example, on today's segment, you were talking about an incident which led you to say, "Thank you, Obamacare." And you'll have to watch the segment to get it. And then Alpa Sucka Cheese.
Alp, A-L-P.
Oh, Alp.
Sucka Cheese.
Alp Sucka Cheese.
Now, the Alp I can understand because it's in, the Alps. But I'm sorry, sucka is universal. And if you sucka in the Alps, that's just, higher altitude of sucka. And so, yeah, somebody stole all this cheese, which was contaminated. So now they've got a ton and a half of bad cheese. But it's just the name of it that kind of tickled me. Every week, what I do is I look at the odder news stories of the week, and I do for them what I do for corporations. I summarize them, I make them funny, and it's just news people may not see anywhere else. And I put them out both in a written edition and as a video link to YouTube.
Do you use news and current events in your corporate speaking engagements as well?
Oh, I use I use a lot of current events. For instance, I had one just the other night that there were some politicians who were being given an award for something or other. I don't know, but there were politicians in the audience, which opened it wide for me for political jokes, because we have a very contentious governor's race in Illinois right now, and this was in Illinois, and it just just making fun of the different commercials that these guys are running and such really set a tone no matter which side you are on.
Dale, as a speaker, you're in front of corporate audiences all the time, obviously. We've been talking about that. And the truth is, some percentage of the audience hates their job. Do you do anything to make them feel better about their job, or is there anything they can do to feel better about their jobs?
I don't know if there's any. If you really hate your job, quit. Because I don't know if there's anything that can be done. If you dislike certain aspects of your job, certainly those can be changed. Those can be attended to. But if you actually hate your job, quit. It's not going to get any better. The boss isn't going to come in and say, "All right, you're a partner now, and we're tripling your pay." That's not going to happen. If you hate your job, find a job you like. That's the greatest advice I ever got as a kid was, find something you like to do and you'll never work a day in your life. And I don't consider when I do work, it's fun.
No, and everybody has fun while you're doing it. The challenge for people is they think they don't have the skills to do anything else. I'll give you an example. I've worked with surgeons most of my life, and when you're a surgeon, you think you really don't know how to do anything else. It's not true, but if you can't pick up a knife and cut on something, you don't know what to do with your life. A lot of them hate what they do, believe it or not. That doesn't make you feel very good if you find out the guy who's about to replace your aortic valve doesn't like what he does. But a lot of them hate their jobs. They don't think they could do anything else, but yet they've grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. So is there anything that you think someone can do, maybe to create another job or look for another job, to really kind of think out of the box, to use a cliche?
Well, first of all, a good surgeon would be an excellent butcher. So right there, you got that problem solved right off the bat. Or, if they don't want to be a surgeon, be the coroner. Because what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Nothing. It's not like you're going to get one back on the table. No, they're gone. So, yeah, there's other related things you can do. My suggestion is find out what interests you. What do you like to do? What did you study in college that was particularly appealing to you? And seek that out. Don't get stuck in a dead-end job of something just because, it pays you. Granted, you need money, but money comes easy when you find the right job. The main thing is a lot of times I think people are just scared to take that step. They have a bit of security in the hated job that they have now, but at least it's security, and they hate to take that next step. That's something that I guess you just have to do. It was a big step for me when I got into comedy after getting thrown out of advertising, because at the time my daughter was 4 months old, and all of a sudden I had no job, I had no hospitalization, I had nothing, and I was going out on the road 35 weeks a year. That was a big step. That was a big step for all of us, and I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying you gotta take it.
There's a phenomenon that a lot of people talk about, entrepreneurs. It's called the baby phenomenon, where once they have a baby or there are other people depending upon them for their sustenance, they become very, very creative. It sounds like you experienced some of that.
Oh, absolutely. When you're down and out, you got to get, up and in and figure out exactly what you need to do in order to provide enough money for your family, and B, work at a job that you can look forward to and working at for a long time, and C, eventually become successful.
So we talked about when people hate their jobs, some things they might do, get another job. When one of your friends or someone you know comes to you and says, Dale, I hate my relationship. I hate my husband. I hate my wife. I can't stand my boyfriend. Do you provide advice?
I don't provide advice only because people never come to me looking for that kind of advice.
You've been married for 40 years, dude. I mean, come on. You're the guy they should go to. You've got a track record.
My advice would be, whether it's your spouse, your boyfriend, your job, whatever, if you hate it, I mean, that's a very, very strong emotion. But if you do, get out of it. Because it's not easy to get back up the road from hate. If you really dislike something that bad, you got to consider your own happiness and get out of it.
You said you've been married for 40 years. Now, I would imagine because you travel so much, maybe you've been together 22.5 years or something like that, if you subtracted the time you're on the road. Do you think...
Possibly.
I'm just, I'm being a little facetious, but do you think
I'm not sure it's that much.
Do you think that people who travel, that some people have better relationships because they're not together all the time?
It's all about, I think, how you structure your relationship. I mean, when we went into this, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to be gone a long time, but this is what I want to do, and I think that that this will we can provide for a family for this. I think it depends on that relationship. I don't know if if being apart strengthens it or weakens it. Nowadays it's much, much easier to stay in contact with, with Skype and with cell phones and with texting and with everything else. Back in the old days, you had to be near a hardwire phone. When I used to work cruise ships, which I did towards the end of my comedy career, I'd be out for, in foreign countries for a month and have no way of getting back and other than an occasional ship-to-shore call. So it's much easier to stay in contact now, and I believe that, again, depending on your relationship, that should make it easier.
Dale, do you have a favorite quote, something that you've shared with your audiences or something that helps you to get through life every day?
My favorite quote is from Groucho Marx, who said, "Outside of a dog, a book is man's best friend. Inside of a dog, it's too dark to read." So I think then that pretty much sums up life,
Is there a book, since you mentioned books, is there a book that's made a difference in your life?
Let me think. Probably the ones that made the most difference in my life were the ones I wrote, because they required me to learn stuff before I could ever write about it. But I read strange things. One of my favorite authors include everybody from Dave Barry to Hunter S. Thompson. So I don't know if there's a motivational book per se that I've ever read that has really changed my life. They've all given me good ideas that I've been able to implement, but I couldn't cite one source that I would repeatedly go back to.
And I will have a link to the books that you wrote on the show notes page and how people can get those books. How can people find out more about Dale Irvin, the professional summarizer?
Very easy. You just go to my website, which is very difficult to find. It's daleirvin.com. It's DALEIRVIN.com. And on there's all my information. When you go there, you can sign up for free for the Friday Funnies and take a look at other stuff that I've done.
And I strongly recommend people sign up for the Friday Funnies, because by the end of the week, if you work in corporate America, ladies and gentlemen, you need something to laugh about. Dale fills the bill. David, you can also friend me on Facebook, just said Dale Irvin, or you can follow me on Twitter at Pro Summarizer, PROSUMMARIZER. I have not been following you on Twitter. I am going to do that. Dale Irvin, the professional summarizer, giving us words of advice about life's big three: relationships, health, and career. Dale, thank you so much for being a guest on the I'm Giving Notice podcast.
My pleasure. And remember, you can improve all three of those areas with laughter.
Very true words, Dale. Thank you. Laughter will help you to get through a lot of things in your life. No doubt about it. And I hope that the I'm Giving Notice podcast today helped you to have a little bit of laughter, or maybe just to see things in your life in a different perspective, because you are in a position to be able to take control of life's big three. Hey, go to our Facebook page and like us. I'd really appreciate that. And I hope you'll come back and spend more time at the I'm Giving Notice podcast. Until then, this is Mace Haroff. Thanks for coming by. See ya.
This has been the I'm Giving Notice podcast with Mace Haroff. For show notes and more information about how you can take control of life's big three, please visit www.imgivingnotice.com.